Number one, we live in a world where there's not a lot of great dads. Or let me say this, there's not enough. There's not enough. Number two, many of the examples that people are given are promulgated by what I would call a false gospel, a false hope of media. And that is that 40% of children tonight go to bed without a father. For the first time in the nation's history, the majority of children born to women ages 30 and under are born out of wedlock. They have no dad. So the average person, their experience is, at least for a season or for the duration of their life, no father whatsoever. And so there's something that the sociologists will call cultivation theory. Cultivation theory is that when you are perhaps not familiar with something, media cultivates for you a sense of what normal or reality is or should be. Okay? And so if, let's say you didn't have a dad or a good dad, or you've not seen a lot of good dads. And let me say, if you're at the Trinity Church, you're in the right place. There is a high percentage of good men, godly men here. Not perfect men, but men in process. Our largest ministry is men's. And our men have the Father's heart, and they're trying to grow to share the Father's heart with women and children. That's a big part of what we do. If you want to see that, join me on Wednesday night. But this issue of cultivation theory, let me share this with you. There was a sociological study that was done. It was published in the Journal of Psychology for Popular Media Culture. And I believe it might have been republished in the American Psychological Association Journal. It was from a researcher at West Virginia. And here's what it says. The study focused on father-child interactions of TV fathers in popular situational comedies in the 2000s. So from 2000 to about 2010, they decided, let's look at all the sitcoms and see what kind of dads there are and what kind of view of fatherhood we are cultivating in the next generation. Yeah, not good. That was prophetic. You prophesied the future. They recorded 699 father-child interactions across 10 situational comedies. Now here's what's interesting, the data survey finds 99% of American households have at least one TV. I've read in another study that there are more TVs in America than people. Okay? And the average household has 3. Now you add to that tablets, computers, and phones. The number one consumer of screen time are children ages 8 to 18, those most formative years. And the average home has a television on 8.5 hours a day. The average 8 to 18-year-old spends 8 hours a day consuming screen technology and media. They spend more time in front of a screen than the classroom, and now we've actually made the two one. And so what this means practically is if you are a person who takes their child to church every other week, which is a pretty regular churchgoer, and let's say the sermon is 30 minutes. And if you're new, that's not here, okay? That's not here. But if the sermon is 30 minutes and you only go twice a month, your child is getting 1 hour of Bible teaching from the pulpit a month, and they are getting 180 hours of media consumption largely on television. It's 180 to 1. Now, here's what the data analysis looked at, all of the different sitcoms, and then they scored positive and negative interactions and demonstrations of fatherhood. And this may not shock you, but here's the first data point. Working class fathers. How many are the blue collar guys? Okay, that was my dad. My dad is Joe. He was a construction worker. He would get up every morning. He would fill his thermos with coffee, he would grab his tool belt, he would jump in his truck, and he would go to the job site to feed our family, of which I was the oldest of 5. That was my dad. It is my dad. My dad's watching. I love my dad with all my heart. My dad literally broke his back to feed 5 kids so my mom could stay home with us. Okay? I just want to publicly honor my blue-collar dad. And in addition, I worship a guy who had a blue-collar dad. And he was blue-collar. His name is Jesus. First 30 years of his life, he's doing construction. Here's what it says. Working class fathers, i.e. Fred Flintstone, Archie Bunker, Dan Connor from Roseanne, and Homer Simpson. have been shown to be failures who often need to be saved by their wives, in contrast to middle-class fathers who are shown to be successful and hardworking. What they said is, of all the research, it's the blue-collar fathers that are shown to be the most incompetent, the most bumbling. Ultimately, it's the mom, the kid, or the family pet who saves the day. The worst of the worst are the blue-collar fathers who are biologically raising their own children. So the story is, if your dad is still living with you and goes to work in a blue-collar job, you've got the worst possible father. You may ask, what was the best category of fathers? Well, the person who did this data analysis did a survey and a research study and then a report outside of this journal. It was gay fathers that scored the best. Gay fathers, they said in a separate interview, there was no record in any of the sitcoms that they watched with gay fathers where they said or did anything negative to their children. It was 100% positive portrayal. Compare that to Archie Bunker. Compare that to Roseanne. Compare that to Homer Simpson. Compare that to Fred Flintstone. And so what you're being told is, if your dad is still in your life and goes to work to feed you, you've got the worst case scenario. If you have a gay dad, you've hit the bonus round. Okay. Now here's what I'm telling you is this. Many people don't have a father. We'll talk about it in a moment. They also have a father wound. In addition, if you grow up and you go to media, the portrayal of fatherhood is not going to be positive, and it is certainly not going to be biblical. And so what this causes is it's hard for us to take big lessons from little kids, because when we think of father, we don't think of God as father, and we don't think in the biblical category of father. And so what it leads to is what I have often referred to as a father wound.